Hey, Doug. Thanks for giving up so early. Doug asked me to talk about what is melanoma. Just a basic overview. You all are intimately familiar with what melanoma is, but I'm going to talk about it in general terms. I'm going to start with a story from when I was 14 years old and was a Boy Scout. This is a mythic Norman Rockwell painting. I taught Cub Scouts for 2 years. They've never sat in one chair for 30 seconds. But anyway, when I was 14, I was getting a merit badge, and you have to go to a merit badge counselor and pass off your requirements. And when we completed the interview, he said, I've got a mole on my back that's bleeding. I'd like your father to remove it. Would you please have him call me? My father was a general surgeon, so I went home and I told my father, and he said, I better call him right now. It could be a melanoma. And I said, what's that? He said, it's a cancer that starts in moles. And I said, is it bad? And I remember this moment like it was yesterday. He said, good hell, boy, it's the worst cancer you can get. So I said, why? And he goes, I don't know. It doesn't stay in the skin. It tends to get into the bloodstream. So he called it, and we removed it the next day, and the man died 6 months later at age 53. He was the father of a classmate of mine. And this had an indelible impact on me as a young person, and I decided that I wanted to do something about that as a career. So we're going to talk about the skin. It has 3 layers like a cape. So you might think of the epidermis as frosting. The second layer is the dermis, which is very thick, which is what mother comes from, and then the fat. So if we zoom in on the epidermis, it's comprised of 3 cells. And they have some visual aids. The squamous cells are the most abundant cells, and they're kind of ceramic. They're like hollow ceramic cells, and that's why the surface of the skin, when people get a squamous cell carcinoma, it's scaly. Has anyone had a squamous cell carcinoma in the audience? You have one? Yeah, and then the second cell at the base of the epidermis is called the bathing cell. They're columnar cells, meaning they're shaped a little bit like a pop can. And then the most elegant of them all by far is the melanoma, which looks almost exactly like this octopus. So it sits upside down, and when the sun is exposed to ultraviolet light, it sends pigment packets called melanin through these arms, and it's distributed among the keratinocytes. And the purpose of the melanin is it absorbs ultraviolet light. So Ben Franklin is actually credited with inventing the lightning rod. So melanin acts like a lightning rod. It absorbs ultraviolet radiation and turns it into vibrational energy, which protects the DNA from the keratinocytes. The problem, of course, is that the melanoma, or the melanocyte itself, can be damaged by ultraviolet light, and that can lead to a melanoma. So there's about 5.4 million cases of skin cancer per annum in the United States. If you take the 8 next most common cancers and add them together, they don't come anywhere close to skin cancer. So out of the skin cancers, melanoma is only 1%. However, it's responsible for over 75% of all the deaths from skin cancer. So what is the pedigree of a melanoma? Well, if you look at an embryo, when the sperm and the egg meet, it forms something called the zygote. And as the cells divide, the cells become hollow like a basketball, and then they invaginate. And that invagination becomes what's called the neural tube, which is the brain and the spinal cord. The melanocyte is actually part of that. It's not part of the epidermis. And so its pedigree is that it's very migratory from its birthright. And so, in a sense, it's like riding the Ace of Spies. He was a Russian spy for the British Secret Service, who was basically the model for James Bond, but he was a master of disguises, multiple foreign passports, could speak foreign languages very convincingly, foreign currency. So melanoma is born with the ability to be very migratory, like a spy that can cross international borders. So that may be one of the reasons why it's so much more deadly than the other skin cancers. How many people get melanoma? Well, about 90,000 are thought to have got melanoma last year, and of those, about 9,000 deaths. So that tells you that about 1 out of 10 people who get melanoma die. But the flip side is 9 out of 10 survive. And as Sam was mentioning, the data is getting better now that we have better agents to treat stage 4 melanoma. Someone dies about hourly in the U.S. from melanoma. Now, Utah's a special case. We have the highest melanoma incidence in the United States.
Yeah.
And so you can see from this data here that Utah has almost twice the national average of melanoma. So the question is why? Well, here's a song by Jimmy Buffett, Changes in Latitudes, Changes in Attitude. So Utah is a far south latitude. And rather than attitudes, we have a high altitude. So let's talk about those two things. If you look at London, London is north of Newfoundland. I always thought Salt Lake was about the same latitude as London. We're the same latitude as Rome. So if you look at most people that live in Utah, they are not equipped to live on the Mediterranean coast. So the closer a Caucasian gets to the equator, the higher their skin cancer risk. So this is John Wesley Powell with Paiute Native American. And so the Native Americans are genetically built to live on the Colorado Plateau at a high altitude and a southern latitude, but Caucasians are not. So the other problem is altitude. So for every 1,000 feet you go above sea level, the ozone filter decreases by 7%. So it's a little bit like a filter on a cigarette. The bigger the filter is, the less carcinogens get into the lungs. Same with the ozone. The thicker the ozone, the less ultraviolet radiation gets to the skin. The summit at Snowbird is exactly 11,000 feet. You'll burn 77% faster at the summit than you will in Los Angeles. If you look at snow, that reflects 80% of the sun. You'll burn 150% faster on snow. So that's the problem with living in the Intermountain West. Who's at highest risk? Increasing age, fair skin and freckling and blue eyes, ultraviolet light exposure, particularly before the age of 18. That's why Sam was talking about tanning when we're young. It has a greater impact on cancer later in our life. People that have multiple nevi, people that have had organ transplants, that are taking medications to prevent their immune system from rejecting the organ. And if you have more than 2 family members, those all increase your risk of melanoma. So the only variable that's under our control is ultraviolet light. So this is a fascinating photograph from May 16, 1869, a promontory point out by Corinne, Utah. Have any of you been out there? Yeah. So what do you notice about how those people are dressed? Hats, right? And long sleeves, yeah. So you couldn't pull people out of downtown Salt Lake in May that are dressed like that anymore. So it's really attitudes for, this was a beautiful resort out on the Great Salt Lake called Salt Air. And look at the bathing suit. So that one-piece bathing suit for both men and women covers the areas where most melanomas occur. Melanoma, as opposed to the other skin cancers, is truncal. And so the change in the style of the swimsuit is correlated with an increase in melanoma incidence. And melanoma, unlike the other skin cancers, is strongly related to recreational sun exposure, not chronic sun exposure on the head and neck. So we talked about the ABCDs of melanoma. A is asymmetry. One half doesn't look like the other half. B is border. It should look like a football or a basketball, but not a baseball mitt. It shouldn't have notches in it. It should be a monotone color, not multiple colors. And in general, it should be smaller than a pencil eraser. The American Academy of Dermatology has recently added evolution, so if a mole is becoming larger, changing color, or becoming elevated, and cutoffs change, that's a warning sign. Doug Grossman and I have noticed that really more helpful is the ugly duckling rule. The ugly duckling rule means if you look at all the moles on your skin and there's one that jumps out, that's what you really need to have checked by your dermatologist. So it's a little bit like that song, one of these things is not like the other by Sesame Street. So you can see 3 tools and then a shoe. So melanoma stands out. It's a mole that just doesn't look like the other moles in the neighborhood. So it's a problem at cocktail parties when people say, so what does this look like? Do you think that's melanoma? I really need to see it in the context of the whole area, so I have people just get naked. And at cocktail parties, people are incredibly willing to do that. Where's my invitation? Yeah. It's an open invitation. So Scott Florell is going to talk about the Breslow depth. This is the most important prognostic feature in melanoma is how deep is it. And the pathologist has a reticle, which is a lens with millimeter etchings that's superimposed over the skin, so they can easily measure how deep the melanoma is. And you can see the survival on the left-hand side here, left-hand side here, you can see that for melanomas that are down into the fat, only 40% of those people are alive 5 years after diagnosis. So that's critically important for the pathologist is to see how deep it is. The greater the depth, the greater the risk that it can get into the lymph nodes. And lymph nodes, Dr. Bolts will talk about, are a little bit like filters in a swimming pool. So when I was a child, I'd always go over to the filter and lift the lid off, and you'd see bees and leaves and other things that are caught in the filter. So the lymph nodes will travel them up to the time before they get into the bloodstream. So how is it staged? We call it the tumor nodal metastasis staging system. So T is the tumor status, how deep was the tumor. The M is for the status of the lymph nodes, and M is in the internal organs. So you might think of an oval tract at your high school. Stage 0 is called in situ, where the melanoma is still in the starting blocks, meaning it's in the epidermis and it hasn't penetrated into the dermis. It's trapped in the top there. That has 100% survival. Stage 1 is it's in the epidermis and it's less than 2 millimeters in depth. Stage 2 is it's in the epidermis but it's greater than 2 millimeters in depth. Stage 3 means it's gone to the regional lymph node. Regional simply means if the melanoma was on my elbow, it would be under my left arm. If it was in my lymph nodes under my right arm, that would be stage 4 disease, which is metastatic disease in the internal organs. So stage 0 graphically is just going to be like an oil slick on top of a pond. It can't go anywhere because there's no vessels in the epidermis. So that's what we like to see, is an incision melanoma. Stage 1 means that it's crossed the basement membrane, but it's done so at a depth of less than 2 millimeters. And the survival there has a wide range between 80 and 95% survival of 5 years. That doesn't mean you're going to live to be 5 years. It means that if you have 100 people and you go 5 years out, 80 to 95% will still be alive at 5 years. Stage 2 means that it's in the skin and deeper, and the survival can go all the way down to 40% up to 75%. And then stage 3 means it gets into the lymph nodes. And here's a little bit of an anomaly in the staging system because some stage 2 people have a worse prognosis than people that have stage 3 if it's microscopic disease in the lymph node. So stage 3 means that this started on this patient's foot. It's in the regional lymph nodes and growing. And they can range from 25% to 90%. So a huge range of difference depending on how much melanoma is in the lymph nodes. And then stage 4 is if it gets into the internal organs. And in melanoma, the 3 most common organs are going to be the lung, the liver, and the brain. So 10% survival, that's been very dismal, but in the last several years, that's been dramatically changing with newer therapies. So in summary, only you can prevent forest fires, and only you can prevent healing sunburns. So it's really those sunburns in our childhood that do us in. So it's really important to communicate that to your family that we want to avoid those peeling sunburns when we're young. That has a great impact on us getting melanoma later in life. All right, thank you very much. May I answer any questions? All right, thank you.